Should we start? Yeah, let's start. Yeah, so hi to the, what's the topic? I'm sorry, we had a lot of topics today. So it's quick workshop for designers. Good. So I don't know how many designers are in here. Yeah, a few. Yeah, that's already good. So it's all about Keep Quick, and Keep Quick is, we try to make it targeted a bit for designers as well. So designers that know the Flash world. So because we saw that a lot of companies and products are built like designers are doing Flash mockups, and then they give it the Flash mockup which runs on the desktop to the people, to the developers, and say, we want this on our embedded platform. Alright? And so this won't work at all. So what we have with QML is you can do prototyping. If you have we start from here. It's the today's world. We have the logical, like the real code developers and the designers, and they don't fit together very well. One point is that they think totally different, usually, just in my experience. And the other thing is that the designers have tools that work on a desktop, and you can do such great stuff, like in Photoshop or Illustrator, or also in Flash, and that's very nice. But for embedded targets, this won't work out, as I said before, and also for desktop applications, for netbooks as well, where you don't have such a good graphics card, for example, it's also hard. So QML, that's what I've described. So you have the fancy UI in the beginning, and then during the product development, it gets down to a list view from like very static design. The slides are not from me, so what we try with QML is to bring them closer together. We try to tell people, take a developer that knows how to write QML and maybe a bit of C++, or in your case, as we saw during the conference, Python bindings are already there as well. So you can have the Python and the QML developer sitting next to the designer and directly work on the UI, and the designer can give input to the developer, and QML makes it easy for the developer to adjust stuff to directly do the stuff that the designer wants to. At least this is our target for QML, and that's why.
Excuse me, thank you. This is a great overview. Is Quick in Ubuntu Archives?
Yes.
Yeah. It's installed by default.
It's what?
Installed by default.
It's not by default.
It's part of Qt.
It's part, where the declarative part is this is a library which is a package on Ubuntu, and you can just install it from the repositories. I don't know if it's pre-installed already, but it's
get development vendors if you want to develop in Qt Quick. It's libqt4-dev package, I believe.
But it's installed by default because Unity 2D is using it.
Yeah,
that's to have it by default
and yeah. And if you've been to the embedded talk yesterday, I also just used Ubuntu from Linaro. I did nothing.
Excuse me,
Yeah.
I think the real point is, what's the GUI that one would use, the designer would use to do this? And the answer is Qt Creator,
Qt Creator,
which
yeah.
isn't up there. That's all. I got confused.
Okay.
Yeah, the designer can draw everything in Photoshop and then export to.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, we have a graphical designer in Creator, but it's not there where we want to have it at the moment. It lacks a lot of stuff for animations, and to make the transition actually works visually. You can start to sketch up the UI, but at the end you need like a developer together with a designer to make the stuff happening. But as if they're sitting next to each other, you can basically the designer says something, and the developer just hacks it into and reloads the file, and you see the output already. So it's much more faster iterating to do the stuff, and then actually see it on the real target. I mean, my cat can be a better target, but also tablet doesn't need to be like a fancy developer board. Yeah, so I think that's already everything about what I try to extract from the slides here. So, have the designers in here, have you took a look at QML already? Have you seen the code?
Have you seen the create the designer thing? Where you can place your items?
Have a look at the code I adopt, Unity 2D is done, the dash is done with QML, so.
But you're just doing the graphics and somebody else actually puts it into the QML file?
Can you ask again, please?
So he's doing the PNGs or SVGs or something and you put it into a QML file?
Do the QML code and the backend stuff.
So, okay. Let's see. One other thing that we experienced for a project is to have to start off from a very static QML user interface. So the designer and the developer get there and build up the static one. Each screen, basically, all the states there, very static. And if you click somewhere, it immediately happens. So like, not fancy at all. But we think that that's a better approach to make this first, because it's so easy in QML to add animations afterwards. Because animations are triggered basically by state changes or by behavior if some property changes. Like, let's say, if you click on a rectangle, the property mouse down, for example, changes, and then you can run an animation. So that's why we recommend to make first a static one, so you don't get distracted and see the bugs more easily. Because if you start from the beginning with all the animations, you just easily oversee stuff, bugs, and yeah.
One question. Are there any improvement to the visual designer or I mean, when I have to write some customized component or especially a delegate, I usually have to write code and make it run so I can try it. Is there any way to visualize it before really into the real project?
You mean to design a specific component?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me see if I can just.
Because of course I've tried with Qt Creator, but
it didn't work.
The visual preview is not working.
This might be a bug, or we didn't have it at the moment. This could be a bug there, or we don't have it implemented. I'm not aware of how the state there is, but there is a lot of development going in this. So as Qt Quick is now, especially the Qt Quick 1 branch version is very stable at the moment. So now we actually focus on the designer from the. But if you have if the underlying system is not stable, you just waste time to develop the visual designer. But there's a lot of effort going into this because it's needed for designers as well.
Yeah. There's one major thing which makes it problematic to design your whole UI with the designer is that in a real application you have some logic in the backend, if it's C++ or some other models where your data comes along, and the designer cannot really know how this data looks like and cannot just come up with something. There's something going on where you can like put dummy data files in the backend. I haven't tried it yet, but what I saw so far, it looks usable. But I mean that's one important step. As John has already mentioned, transitions. You cannot do transitions. You can do the different states of your element, of your component, but you cannot define or trigger or do the transitions. So that's one part where I actually don't know if something going on or somebody's implementing something, but that's definitely a missing part, especially for designers who want to define those things. But again, sitting next to a developer is the thing we see which works best. because you can just poke him all the time. Say no, no, no. Do it that way,
And we also don't want to rebuild like the Flash tool to create Flash user interface, because it's very good. It's so much effort put into this. It works good, but we cannot just rebuild this. We don't have that much resources to give the same functionality. So what the designer focuses heavily is to help you in the first step by creating the static user interface.
placing items.
Okay.
Placing items, moving around.
So the likelihood is if you're working with a professional visual designer, you know, assets may come in PNG, you know, depending on what you're using. I mean, can you import PSD into this? I think I saw a demo of.
Yeah, we used to have, or we have a plugin for Photoshop there where you can export your Photoshop file to QML. It will generate, each layer will be a PNG, and then it will generate a QML source code that uses those PNGs, and the output looks similar to the other one. But we went into this direction and tried to make it better, but then we saw, okay, it's not possible to create such a generic thing, because then the round trip doesn't work anymore. Because you have this now, you can run it, you see your nice Photoshop thing, and then you add functionality, and then you want to go back maybe, because, okay, you see you have to change this a bit, you go back, you generate again the whole QML, and all the functionality, it's a mess to merge.
Yeah. So in order to build this static scene, there's also sort of rich visual assets. Is it a case of compositing lots of different assets, or are you sort of are there tools in here that you sort of, are you looking at trying to sort of move visual designers over to tools you have in Qt Quick?
Can you ask the question?
Okay, so are there drawing tools in this?
No, not at all. No. We don't want to do this.
So we're bringing visual assets.
We don't want to force the designers to go to learn our thing, and we are not able to build up a thing like Photoshop or Illustrator. And even though then again, two different tools.
Maybe I could talk a little bit about how INDT works, like the workflow that we do together with designers to develop that. Now?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. How it works from Instituto Brazil? We just start with design concept, and they like make videos that how the application should work, and after that they start drawing flows to how the application should behave. Like oh, you click this, so you have this behavior, you have these icons like moving, blah blah blah. So they design the entire flow. So based on that, we start creating QML files, and like create the basic things, and then we will start building the logic behind the QML, and that's more or less how we go for the development.
So at that stage, you're just blocking areas out, like essentially low fidelity, interactive pieces, or do you have visual assets? You build out actual visual assets.
Sorry, I didn't very well.
So are you saying the developers are starting to build out the QML?
Yes.
Is that in blocks, or do you have graphics?
Yeah, in blocks. For example, the design could draw the whole application. So we start doing small pieces of that, and start doing.
Yeah. There is also. I think you're talking about the sketching phase, where you have like just white and black stuff, and you create your user interface without any colors and designs, just to get the flow running. And for this, we have a colleague of us did a presentation at Dev Days for exactly this. There will be a video available, and he provides QML components for exactly this phase, so you can use the visual designer in Creator, and you have like button, list, and something like just for sketching up the user interface, and then you create the static thing, create the flow, and then you're replacing the parts by actual real
drop-in assets.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
he explains how to do that step by step. You have to touch a tiny little bit of QML code.
Yeah.
No, it is. Yeah.
So
So
that's what
it's,
I was trying to establish here, I guess the process.
we are actually all we are in the phase also to try to get the workflow proper. I mean, it's a new tool, and QML itself is new. And so it's also good to get feedback from your side. How do you design at the moment your applications for Ubuntu? Is it like the developer come up with a user interface written in the tool in like GTK, and then the designers come in and say like, okay, but this doesn't fit our style guide, or I don't know.
No, it's the other way around. So,
Okay.
yeah. So the UX designers come up with flows and wireframes and so on, and then visual design also contributes to the development. But
Yes.
basically, it's a design-driven process, and that's why I was actually wondering: are you targeting with the Qt Creator, a designer developer pair, so that it's for them, it's for that working pair. It's a tool for them to communicate and work on a prototype quickly, or do you want this to be accessible to not so tech-savvy designers as well? I give you a benchmark. So, Nokia created this wonderful tool called Floella,
Yeah,
which is absolutely designer-friendly. I use it all the time.
and it's horrible that it's not done in Qt.
Yeah.
Otherwise
So
it would have been easily integrated.
and it's frustrating because I can't actually prototype any complex behaviors. I would like to do slides and scrolls and swipes and
Yeah.
a different state. I just can't.
Yeah.
But if with this I could do that and it was just that much more difficult than Floella, I'd be extremely happy.
We don't have such thing like Floella in the code.
And
We
that's
don't
not
have-
in your...
What we have is more like each in Floella where you have like the screens there, where you can connect the pieces inside the screen. This tool is for designing a single screen, not the transition between the screens. And if you click there, what happens? It's not in our tool. But I heard rumors that that from the training and department, they also use Floella there for showing other app developer companies how to use it, and they are thinking of maybe at least create a Qt version for that already and make it a bit more integrated with this. I guess it will not be a plugin of Creator, but it doesn't need to be. But at least it should go hand in hand with QML.
Yeah. That sounds good because I believe in bringing prototyping as close to the design source as possible.
So that's what we're trying with the quick approach, but we aren't there yet.
Right.
And like the big piece missing is really kicking designer in the creative.
Yeah, in ING, for example, we can like draw, we can prototype things really quickly. For example, a project is given to us, and all the designers do the work, and we just build the KML using that, and then we just show to our Nokia clients.
I think also that the setup I've described beforehand, where you have always the designer next to the developer, that's like not possible. So, but at least you at the as soon as the developer gets all the flow and then more graphics,
Right.
you can start doing it on your own or based on this. But then the designer can actually also run it, even though it's not a finished prototype, and give immediately feedback.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's very, very valuable.
Probably tweak the code, so
Exactly.
change numbers.
It
and
depends, yeah, exactly.
that's
Then,
useful, yeah.
yeah, so you don't need to design. I mean, it's really helpful if the designer then knows a bit of QML.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's no need to know JavaScript for like the control flow, but at least for tweaking.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just property value driven, so it should be easy.
Yeah, that's what we do with ActionScript and processing and,
Yeah.
and things like that. So it's really hard to like create code from scratch, but if you have a script in front of you and then it's okay, this bit does that, and it's no use to. It's also frustrating every time you go to developer when you think that you should move in faster or something like that.
Yeah.
So
You
it's
know,
like the-
you
the
can-
entries
cost-
are-
You can definitely, I mean, if your developer does reasonable quality code,
Yes, yeah.
then you can definitely read QML very, very easy.
yeah. In INC, in fact, we have training our designers for doing small changes to HTML to change a little bit the behavior.
Yeah.
And I think they are starting to maybe selling training for that, designing and HTML with directions.
And therefore it's very, you actually need to use the declarative paradigm there and don't put too much JavaScript in there, because then it's much harder to tweak it during development. Because if you do a lot of control flow by JavaScript or describing or starting animations by using JavaScript and not by property changes, for example, then the code gets bigger, harder for the designer afterwards to take a look at it, to tweak it, so in your case then try to get more stuff from the developers done in Python, for example.
Are there any plans to fix that limitation by maybe partitioning the JavaScript from the base description?
What?
Or, so what you're saying is if you have JavaScript in it and then you iterate on it, you're going to overwrite the JavaScript? Is that?
No, maybe I can give you an example here. Let's see.
You have JavaScript in your QML? Shame on you.
Sometimes you need. But okay, if you take a look here, this is like title text. This is my own component here.
Yep.
It's just the text item thingy, and there you see there is no JavaScript applied. It's just I just declare the text thing.
Sure.
And then here I have a custom loader item, and on some event happened here, I have to run JavaScript in here.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you should try to avoid such things as much as
Early in
possible.
the cycle while you're iterating, you're saying? Or in general?
In general, it makes the code slower
Okay.
because it's really JavaScript, and it makes it less readable as well.
Okay.
But
And
at some point it's not avoidable.
at some point it's not avoidable. That's why we have the functionality to use it. But you should try to avoid it. And usually,
What's the alternative? What's the better approach?
Doing everything declared. So
I experienced that when I was start learning Qt QML, it was like a year ago. The code I've written there was more or less not really declarative. I tried to work around the declarative thing because I didn't understood it very well. And so I put in much JavaScript. And now if I take a look at the code, what I had, because I was doing like, okay, when I click on something, it means I was like doing mouse on click and then executed something.
Mm-hmm.
What you actually should do is take the idea of the mouse area and ask the down property, for example.
Okay.
Do the binding. Don't react on something, but just define, if this happens, this should be done. Like,
Okay. And then
very simple.
There's native code behind that. Is that what you mean by the binding that executes that, or is it?
yeah, exactly. If you have business logic, not like the control flow, then like doing actual stuff on like disk or I don't know what modern stuff. Try to use your backends. We recommend C++. In your case, it would be like a Python binding.
Oh, like this would be C++.
Or yeah. Like, yeah. So then we should offload this to C++. So it's usually, if you have a lot of JavaScript, it's usually a sign that you could have done better.
So still on this separation of concerns then, so I mean I would break it down into content, style and behaviour. So in terms of separating out say content and style, so we could try different things. Do you have something like a sort of HTML, CSS style separation of concerns?
No. Regarding skinning, theming, I mean if you want to have like just font changes, color changes, you can plug this into, but it's not very nice. But what we see is more that a skin or a theme is not only changing colors, it's also changing like animations. So what we've done in the Qt Media project, where we have like C++ core handling all the media stuff, and then we put in different skins on top, like a set-top box, one with totally different skins basically, totally different menu flow, totally different animations. So what we recommend here is to just create a new QML.
What also works, there's one product out there who does actually another thing, which I personally like, but your developer needs to know what they're doing, is you can have like one property somewhere, which is the path to your images, and you change that, and you have two directories with different images, and then those relate to your different themes, and you just change that one property to a different path, and everywhere in the code, if you place items there, you use the property with that image. That works, but it depends how different the skins are, how good it's working, and how much workarounds and corner case things you have to solve from there. So if it's the same size and everything, it's just different coloring of the image. It should be flawlessly, but if it's totally different images and everything, then it's a little bit more tricky to make it right.
The thing could be done like this. So what you can do is you can create a my theme somewhere, and you can have multiple ones of those. And then you from QML side you just say import this, and you create like a style item here. This is what we do in the components. In our components for desktop, for example, we do similar like this. The my theme is in this case is a ++ style engine that tries to figure out like the GTK style, for example. And then here you can access like the color you assign to do a property binding. So foo is my theme style instance, and I query the rectangle color. And then you can, in C++, you can change actually the import, so you get another set of properties. That's one way. But if you want to have more nicer skinning, not just colors, then just write. If you have nice bindings from C++ or Python side, it's easy to like create a new skin on that. So if you take a look at the applications for for devices, such a UI is not that complex in QML, and the designers are more happy because they can say, okay, for this device or for the next version we use a different style, and it can have 9 different animations and not just slightly different color.
The whole UI can be different. You have total freedom.
I wish I was better at Qt, but one thing I'd like to understand is which of the tools around Qt are really good at eating their own dog food?
Qt Creator?
Qt Creator.
Yeah.
So it completely eats its own dog food.
It's totally based on Qt.
Very cool. And then how about some of the other tools? Are all these things you've mentioned?
All, like linguist and documentation, also QMake, all done in Qt.
Very cool.
I mean, QMake is a bit special because for bootstrapping it has to be built beforehand, but it's just using Qt. Yeah. All of our tools based on Qt. Because you don't want to write C++ code without Qt on Linux.
But they don't necessarily use Qt. They aren't written in Qt Quick.
No, not in Qt Quick, not yet.
So how can you find good examples of Qt Quick programs?
The project view in a newer Qt Creator, I don't know what version you have.
This is QML in here. It's not very fancy, but it's QML. Yeah, but it's the first try.
The examples.
Yeah, a lot of examples. Yeah.
When you open
Qt Creator version, sorry,
down there, checkbox.
Yeah.
Wow.
It looks like the new version they don't have this.
Quick. They were already.
Is the version that you're using here?
Is
the version you're using here the same as in the repositories, or is there a newer version?
I think a new one because they don't have this. This UI. I have like.
No,
it's 2.4. It comes with 2.4.
Yeah.
And 2.2.1 is what's in an error.
Yes, this is basically our SDK version. We should, as precompiled, binary block
Oh, it comes with
within it as
2.3.
well. This is for development of
We get 221.
yeah, this is the one you get with on Ubuntu,
Right,
like on your repositories.
yes.
Yeah, it's not.
Should we get the newest, should people try the newest one?
You don't. I mean, of course, and then we feedback on the button as well. No, I mean it's fine. It's fine. Yeah. So with the next Ubuntu release, you will get it anyway in your environment. And this guy here itself, yeah.
Öffne mal den Tacho-Dings. Der Tacho-Dings ist ganz schön, weil da einige Items-Plätze sind. Mhm.
Okay. Anyway, what else? Yeah.
Big question. So, one of the things that could convince us to use Quick is that the Flash for prototyping is, of course, the ability to reuse the code.
Yes, absolutely.
What is like blocking us is the styling properly, because okay, you can style as you want, but we need in Ubuntu to be consistent with the rest of Ubuntu. So our idea should be like using GTK3 to style Qt.
Yeah.
And last UDS there was Jess Backwig who did the QGTK style for GTK2. Is there any plan to do the same thing for GTK3?
I don't know.
This was really
I think
important.
we won't do it from our side. But I mean, if you need it, just do it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. It's because you don't have the style engines anymore, so the porting is a bit
You
more
don't
complex.
have the?
Style engines that you had before in Qt.
Yeah, we have the style engine, but it's working for GTK2. Everything is GTK3.
Yeah.
Our upstream theme is done in GTK3, so that makes
Yeah, so that is actually the missing part we have here is we don't have like Linux desktop components. We have components means in our usage it's widgets.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
I know that Nokia has done something for like Qt components.
Exactly, and therefore we discussed this in other sessions as well. A missing part for use on desktop app for your use case is the components, and then you would create components, or with our help maybe, I don't know, use the components that fit your style guide.
Build ones.
Huh?
Make components.
Yeah, you have to make it. We don't have it at the moment.
Yeah.
We don't have it at the moment. We have a project, but that's not stable, it's not released at the moment.
Do you want to show everyone the Qt component? They're in Git tutorials.
Yeah,
And you can see the Mac and Windows on there.
They work, but it's not done yet. They're not 100% ready.
No, because styling is what is.
Yeah, so these are the components here, you see, what we have. So it adopts the style from my KDE installation. They're not perfect yet, and it's not something that we release soon. We also need more testing, also more input from your side. I don't know, from outside of our use cases. But you see it works. We have the same thing here, like the old widget. It looks like the old widgets.
We need that using GTK3, and we will be extremely happy.
But you see, but as it's Qt quick, you actually should go to create much fancier stuff than what
I
you
know,
can do
but
with
the rendering with GTK3 is really powerful. Trust me, you have all the power of CSS. So it's like drawing on HTML5 web app. It's really powerful. So you can, for example, for this animation, you can just ask GTK to re-render the same widget with different dimensions. So it's really powerful, and you don't have to use GTK widgets anymore because it is abstract from. You just need to instantiate a K-row, context. So you can do by using a pix map and sharing the pix map within Qt. So it can be done.
Yeah, I agree. Like sharing pixel, that's how this components works. We ask the style engine from what we have at the platform here, and it will provide us
a
this
pixel.
pixel. And
So, well,
that's why the scale.
The advantage over GTK2 is that you don't have to create fake widgets and, like saying I wanted to style a button, I create a GTK button and but not a real GTK button. Was the same thing was done for GTK2, was creating fake widgets and then asking GTK to render them. Now, with this new style context, you don't need to create any widget. You just need to provide a set of calls, correct calls, like you say this is a button, but without initializing anything else.
That's what we have in Qt as well in our widgets.
So,
but we recommend to not use widgets anymore.
Okay.
But not the old
widgets.
I'm speaking about Qt components. Maybe
exactly.
I still didn't understand correctly how this thing works.
Okay.
What do you mean with we're not recommending use to widgets anymore?
Yeah, exactly. So we don't recommend to use our old widgets because they are not accelerable with OpenGL.
Yeah.
And they can be modified a lot, and they are very generic things, but that makes them heavy.
Okay.
So
and static.
And static. More static than it's possible with QML. In QML you go more like from simple stuff, and there you can create complex ones, and not you go from the full-blown already and try to modify it for your needs.
So how much QML is there for a fairly sophisticated application? So I mean, are we talking thousands of files, one per
What's
widget,
a
50 per
sophisticated
widget?
application?
Excuse me. Maybe pick one of these. Pick one of these.
Okay, I can show you the source code of like this.
And is it usually one QML per component, or what?
Yeah, exactly.
Per page, or how you want to call it.
Okay.
Per view.
Per view. Okay.
However you want to see the world. And or sometimes more if you have like areas with a lot of stuff in it and complex thing. You say, okay, this is one element of my page, and I just put it in one file, so I've encapsulated it properly, and maybe you can reuse it later or whatever. So it's up to you basically how you architecture, how you encapsulate things.
So can you still read it?
So you have a browser.
This is basically a browser written in the QML desktop components. So it has some buttons here. Okay, it doesn't look very pretty because the components are not really good. If you take a look at the browser QML, it's this. So we're starting off a rectangle, because that's just the basic, our root thing. And there in our root window basically, which is a rectangular thing, has the dimension here.
Top level.
Top level, yeah. It's what you see here. This is the window, top level thing. And then this is the settings dialog in here. We saw. I just gonna skip over this. So here is like a toolbar. You have a toolbar. You anchor it to some positions. This means left and right. So it's always it expands with this. And as nothing is defined, it's on the top. And then you add a tool button in here. You can set the source for the icon, again anchoring a bit, and then you react on click here and do something. This can call back to C++, call back to the JavaScript function, or Python or whatever. And yeah, so this guy here is
Show lines.
On the top
right.
189 lines.
Yes. And there are a dozen files, there are a dozen QML files or so.
But this is, yeah.
3,
and-
6,
and
9,
the-
9.
This is the application, and we use the components, and the components are actually also QML files. This is the one that you need to build up, the library, and this can be shared through all your applications. And there you have, like, let me see what the button looks like. Yeah, so a button is
60
like
lines.
16. Yes, like 60 lines of code.
Is that covering all of the states you might want?
Yeah.
Because you think of the,
This
I
is
think the QAbstract button provided, that's all in here now declaratively, is it?
More or less, yes. It all has functionality like down, like up, like hovering, changing stuff. You see it actually here. But
And
like,
those are states and, transitions driven by triggering events.
yeah.
And
The
function,
states and-
JavaScript function.
Sorry?
There was a function, the JavaScript function.
Yeah, there was, I think, yeah. No, there wasn't.
And how many QML files here? Maybe, it looks like maybe, how many QML files in here? Maybe 40 or 60?
Well, one per widget.
Yeah, exactly, one region.
Okay.
Yeah. And so,
So-
like layouts here,
Uh-huh.
this looks, yeah, this is like very nothing.
Work in progress.
Not implemented. But yeah, you mean.
Does QML has some sort of, I don't know, like processing functionality or whatever, or it's just a strictly declarative language? And not the processing.
Oh, you can, yeah, that should be. You can
write as many JavaScript as you want, but you will regret it.
Yeah, I understand you talk. But there in QML itself, there is no nothing like processing. You cannot say 1 plus 1.
No, you can.
Sure,
You can,
sure.
absolutely. Like you see here, this is like defining a function.
This QML function.
This is
JavaScript.
in QML. It's JavaScript function inside QML. It's embedded. And you can call it by the name here. And like, I can call like, let's see, like component uncompleted. That's basically whenever this guy is created, I can just open a scope. Now we are in JavaScript. I can do then, I don't know what the root is called. Usually it should be ID root. Yes, root.add tab, for example. So this now is, and herein I can do like var, like this, or is this allowed in JavaScript? I think
Yes.
so. Yeah, you can do that. And maybe you take some parameter in here, like this. So that's possible.
But it's still going to be JavaScript. There is no other way to do something.
For this, it will be JavaScript.
The declarations can be as complex mathematical things as you want, basically. So, yeah,
Yeah, like
give
in here-
plus, minus, multiple.
Like let's say in here, we like for the height. Let's say we want to have some calculations on that depending on other states. Like let's say this should be root height. If this guy is 0, then this should be I don't know, 200. Otherwise, it should be root height. For example, this is optimized so there you won't get into JavaScript. Whereas
Also, no, not external, internal JavaScript. Which is there.
This is not going to be fallback to JavaScript, the line you just wrote. This is part of the declarative component. It will be optimized so you don't have to fall back to the JavaScript engine because that's slow because you have to pass around things.
I need some heavyweight calculation. So then we put the whole C++ inside from outside.
What?
If you need to do some heavyweight calculation to find, I don't know.
yeah, then you go back to C++. And you can like, let's see, you want to have it in C++ here because it's very heavy. Then you can do my C++ object, which is there because you maybe attached it to the context.
Created it.
And then you can call
different ways.
like call method, and therein you pass like root.height, for example, for the calculations. And then this height property is bound to this method in C++.
So, for instance, in this project
Yeah.
right here,
You
in
can
this
have
project,
JavaScript files you can just import and have as complex JavaScript things as you want.
So-
And you can also bind to JavaScript functions.
so in this project right here, are there any C++ objects that were
Use? Yes,
Use?
Q style.
It's just
Say again?
the
Q
Q
style.
style.
Q style.
Style?
The abstraction to look native on every platform. So on Windows this will look like Windows, on GK2 it will look like
So
GK2.
we can put Q style right in here?
I don't know how exactly
I don't
it's
know how the
done.
names are, but I can show. Do you want to see like how the binding looks like?
Just, or if there are objects available right there, is there any kind of discovery? Or any kind of...
I can open a different project and you will see it.
Sure.
Like in my talk. So what we have here, we have a custom loader C++ thing that has properties. So this is a QObject class. You write a QObject and there.
How long does the session go?
And let's say I want to use this now in QML because it provides me some special functionality. And it actually does. I need it for my presentation.
It's 2
So
plus
if
5.
we go to demo slide in here, I import this.
It's done at 5.
Of course, you need QML needs to, or Q needs to know that this is actually a class that I want to use in QML. And this is done by this line. QML register type. You register the type, which is custom loader. This is the class. And there you give it a name and versioning. And in QML, you can import this and create an instance of this class here. And there you can use it as any other. So in fact, all the simple components we have are written in the same style.
Are written in that way?
You can look up in the source code. And we also have like auto-completion for the others as well. Like this. So as soon as you have built this class once, Creator will pick it up and give you auto-completion for custom loader. On Signal, and then you see on no source check.
So then, in the project you were in before, there might not have been any discovery because nothing was imported?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And
I think we are done.
We are done and we are,
Yeah, thanks.